Hey there. So, I wanted to tell you why I finally switched to iPhone and why I think the iPhone is the best device if you are going to stick with a smartphone and you want to live a minimalist life with your technology. Smartphones are great these days, they do a whole lot, but sometimes they do too much and they can be highly distracting. So this is the phone I switched to. It's the iPhone SE. A couple reasons for switching to this phone. One reason is the size. So it's the same size as the iPhone 5S. If some of you remember, Steve Jobs originally designed the iPhone to fit in one hand and to be able to use that with your thumb across the screen. It was a very specific size that was made. So the iPhone 5 and 5S were a little bit taller than the original iPhone size. That includes the 4 and 4S and everything before that. But it is much slimmer, much smaller than the new iPhones, the previous iPhones, which are the iPhone 6 and 6S. And they have a 6S Plus as well, which is massive. So I used to have a phone like that. It was an Android phone, and it was great for watching video. But one of the reasons I like the smaller screen is because you're going to be less tempted to watch video on a smaller device. So I actually prefer that. I prefer the size, and this device has great battery life and is extremely simple and easy to use. But there's a couple tips that I wanted to share about how you can set up your iPhone so that you can eliminate distractions and really still get the benefit of apps that you find benefit of without getting distracted and weighed down by extra apps and games and things like that. So you'll see iPhones start out mostly the same with a lot of icons on the home screen, so we want to clean that up. So the first thing you're going to do is go into Settings, and then you're going to look for General. Inside General, there is something called Restrictions. Now restrictions can be your best friend. You first want to set up your restrictions with a 4-digit passcode, and once you have that set up, we can start disabling apps that may be distracting to you. So in my preference, I think the most distracting app is Safari. It's the unfiltered internet. So I don't like to have a web browser on my phone, so I turn that off. And then I don't want to spend money in particular, so I actually turn the iTunes store off as well. So I'm not tempted to buy movies and things on the go. The other thing is bookstore. It's up to you. If you read a lot of books on your phone, you like that, great. I don't. So I turn that bookstore off as well. And then if you're like me, news, as exciting as news is, it can be a huge distraction. So I turn the news app out as well. Now what I just did here is, if you wanted to keep Safari active, you have the option of allowing just you could either limit adult content or just allow a specific websites to be viewed. And so if you click on this, you'll see a list, Apple and things like that on the bottom, and then you can add to those specific sites that you want to allow. So it's kind of up to you. Now the way that I like to do this is I'll have someone else set up the 4-digit passcode for me, and then in that way, once I set this up, I can't unlock things and get back into it until I see that person again, and I'll ask them to put the code in. So this works really well for me personally. And so here, I just fast forwarding here, but essentially if you click down on one of the icons until it starts jiggling, you can move the icons around. And I just decided to clean up my home screen, and I just fast forwarded it here because most of you know how to do this. There's tutorials on how to do this, but I just don't like the clutter of this iPhone screen with all those apps, so I just like to eliminate that. And what you're left with is a much cleaner home screen, since you can't add widgets the same way you would in Android. So you have to figure out in advance which apps are most useful to you. Now, we also want to look at Spotlight search, and we'll come back to this, but essentially this iPhone has a built-in search capabilities which can be a distraction. So we can turn some of these options off that you don't use. Again, some of you may use health, maybe use books, but take a look at what shows up in Spotlight search. Every time you install a new application, they may show up here as well. So just be aware that you'll want to figure out what apps that you want to have under Spotlight search. Now, notifications is a big thing. So notifications can be extremely distracting. So, your phone's sitting next to you, constantly buzzing, constantly telling you things that are happening. So you have the choice of turning off individual notifications. So on my particular phone, instead of my mail notifying me whenever it goes off, for example, I have times where I like to check it, so I'll turn that off. So it doesn't remind me. I will go find it when I need it. And look at each one of these. I don't need to know tips. For me, wallet is not necessary. So I like to turn off the apps that I don't want notifications for. Again, there'll be many more of those once you install the apps that you want. Okay, so once you get the apps that you want downloaded from the App Store, then you want to go back into your restrictions. And the biggest thing that you need to turn off is installing applications or installing apps. I like to leave deleting apps on in case let's say I start out with an app like YouTube and I just get really distracted with it. I can just delete it from my phone. And so this is what my phone ends up looking like. Fairly simple. Again, I said we're going to come back to Siri suggestions. So it will by default show you all this extra information if you swipe your home screen to the left. And again, I want to turn that off. So we go into Spotlight search and just turn off the main icon on the top, which we'll come back to. There we go. And what you'll see is now when you swipe to the left, then you're not going to have you're just going to have a simple search icon. Now you still have the ability to use this to talk to Siri, so it can still give you valuable information. You can ask it, whatever you can ask Siri, but without that extra distracting stuff. I think the iPhone is best for a distraction-free phone. If you still want the smartphone with apps that make sense for you, but you want to eliminate distractions, this is the best way to go, in my opinion. I know a lot of creative people out there who switch back to what they call dumb phones, for example, because these new smartphones are just too distracting. There's just too much stuff going on. But there is a way where you can have the best of both worlds. And in my opinion, this is it.